The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound breaking the stillness of the apartment. Shadows danced along the cracked walls, shifting slowly with each passing minute. The lamp on the far end table cast a golden hue over the room, making the threadbare sofa look almost regal. Lacey Nelson sat on its edge, her back straight though her body longed to melt into the cushions. Her arms rested on her thighs, hands clasped, jaw clenched in thought. It had been another long day. Meetings, missed calls, more grant paperwork rejected, and a quick dinner of rice and beans before Sky's bath and bedtime stories. Lacey had read from the same tattered picture book they'd gone through all week, her voice calm and expressive, even though her eyes barely focused on the words. She knew Sky didn't notice the fatigue behind her smile. All her daughter saw was love, the same kind of unconditional care Lacey never received growing up. Sky had fallen asleep mid-giggle, her warm breath soft against Lacey's collarbone as she carried her into bed. Now, the toddler lay curled on her side, hugging her stuffed bunny tight, her face at peace. That image alone gave Lacey just enough fuel to keep going. But her mind was a restless tide. City Hall. The rejection letter from the zoning commission still sat on the kitchen counter, opened but heavy like a stone. It was the third one this month. Each time they found some small reason to delay construction. Paperwork that wasn't filed correctly, signatures missing, zoning conflicts not previously identified. Every inch of progress with her nonprofit, Rise Up Greenwood, felt like a battle uphill through mud. Someone in power didn't want the community center to break ground. Lacey had her suspicions, of course. The same developers who had been circling their block like vultures for months now. They wanted the land, not for children's programs or workforce training, but for a boutique hotel and a row of luxury apartments. They didn't see the block the way Lacey did. They didn't hear the laughter of neighborhood kids playing tag in the street or smell Miss Claudine's famous gumbo floating through her cracked open window. They didn't understand what it meant for the community to have a safe place. One not threatened by polished shoes and signed deals behind closed doors. Lacey leaned back, eyes closed, and exhaled. Her neck ached. Her heels were cracked from walking the neighborhood that afternoon, handing out flyers, talking to the elderly, checking in on single parents who didn't have the time or bandwidth to fight for themselves. Her hands had built this organization from scratch. No investors, no fancy sponsors, just donations, sheer will, and her law degree. That degree, hanging in a dollar store frame above her kitchen table, was her silent weapon. She didn't wear it like a badge, she wielded it like a sword. "Fade away," she whispered into the quiet. "Never." She stood and padded to the window, pulling back the curtain just a little. Outside, the night looked indifferent. Lights blinking in the distance, sirens faint. Someone's TV still on across the street. A new sign had gone up on the corner lot earlier that day. "Coming soon, Oak and Elm Luxury Townhomes." Lacey stared at it with flint in her eyes. They had no idea who they were up against. Behind her, a small voice broke the silence. "Mama?" Lacey turned. Sky stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes with her tiny fists, her bunny dangling from one hand. Lacey crossed the room in seconds, kneeling and scooping her daughter into her arms. "Hey baby, what are you doing up?" "I had a dream about you," Sky murmured, head already falling against her mother's shoulder. "Oh yeah?" Lacey whispered, carrying her back to bed. "What happened in the dream?" "You were flying, but not like the birds, like a superhero." Lacey smiled, kissing the top of her daughter's head. "That's a pretty good dream." "You were helping people," Sky added sleepily. "Like you always do." Lacey tucked the blanket around her and brushed her locks away from her face. "Get some rest, okay? I'll be here when you wake up." Back on the sofa, she let that moment sink in. A child's dream, so pure, so unfiltered. Lacey didn't have the luxury of quitting. She had a mission stitched into her soul. The city could throw all the paperwork and politics they wanted at her. She'd fight them with her voice, her law, and her ancestors' prayers. She may have been tired, but she wasn't done. Tomorrow she'd meet with the city council again. She'd bring signatures, community letters, documentation of every obstacle they'd created. And if they still tried to block her, she'd take it to court. Because she wasn't just building a nonprofit, she was building legacy. And no one, not greedy developers, not corrupt council members, was going to erase that. Not while Skies still saw her as a superhero. Not while Greenwood still had hope. Not while she still had breath in her body. The marble floors of City Hall gleamed beneath Lacey Nelson's heeled boots. But she didn't come to admire the shine. She walked with steady grace, head wrapped in a patterned scarf, long faux locks falling over one shoulder. Her tailored blazer clung to her tall frame like armor. A folder, thick with documents, letters, and signatures, sat in the crook of her arm. This time, she wasn't walking in alone. Behind her, a trail of community leaders from across the city followed. Pastors, teachers, small business owners, single mothers with their heads high, retired city workers in pressed suits, and youth advocates whose energy lit the room like kindling. They came from every pocket of the city. Eastview, Willow Ridge, Marston Heights, different zip codes, same fight. City Hall's chambers buzzed with the low hum of politics, murmured greetings, shuffling papers, careful postures. But as Lacey stepped in, silence followed. Heads turned. Her presence had weight now. No longer just the nonprofit director fighting for a forgotten block. Now, she was the voice of a movement. At the front sat Councilman Theodore Mills, the man whose quiet nods and misleading smiles had masked a knife in her back for months. He was sleek in his presentation, always measured in tone. But Lacey had traced the permits, the meetings behind closed doors, the land deals tied to his brother-in-law's firm. She knew who she was fighting now. And today, she wasn't playing defense. Councilwoman Rivera raised her brow in surprise. "Miss Nelson, we didn't have you on the speaker's docket for today." Lacey smiled, polite, composed, disarming. "That was before the people asked me to speak on their behalf." She raised a sheaf of signatures. "We'd like to be heard." A low rustle of voices followed, but Rivera motioned for quiet. "You have 5 minutes." Lacey stepped up to the podium, voice low and measured at first. "For months, our nonprofit has faced stall after stall, not due to errors, but obstruction. But I'm not here just to talk about what's been done to me. I'm here because the people behind me, in the neighborhoods they represent, are tired of seeing their communities auctioned off behind velvet curtains." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "We've seen this before. History has shown us how cities make plans without the people who actually live in them. And every time the promise is the same, revitalization. But the result is always displacement." She motioned to the woman sitting just behind her. "You all know Mrs. June Wallace. She stood right here in 1998, fighting the Westbridge relocation plan. She lost her childhood home, but she's still standing, and she's here to help us learn from that history." June rose slowly, a fire still in her aged eyes. "You can't beat them by yelling," she said firmly. "You beat them by knowing the system better than they do. You file every request. You document every denial. You flood their inboxes with public comments and follow every dollar they try to hide in budget language." Another voice stood. Reggie, a former city planner who'd walked away after corruption became unbearable. "I'll show you which loopholes they use and how to close them. I've already drafted a new zoning proposal. Lacey's not alone anymore." The chamber stirred. Some council members shifted in discomfort. Others scribbled notes. But Councilman Mills remained still, lips pursed. "Councilman Mills," Lacey said, turning to face him directly. "You've had your say in private. Now you'll have to answer in public. We know who benefits if Rise Up Greenwood is denied this land, and we have the receipts. Mills opened his mouth, but she raised her hand. Before you speak, know this. I've already filed an appeal with the zoning board, a public records request for all development meetings in the last 18 months, and submitted a complaint to the Ethics Commission. So speak carefully. The city is listening now. A few members of the audience clapped quietly. Then louder. Councilwoman Rivera raised her gavel, but the room had already shifted. Lacey had cracked open a door, and behind it came the voices of a city long ignored. When she stepped down, several other community leaders took her place, each echoing her call, sharing statistics, testifying to the damage done when communities were sold piece by piece. As the meeting adjourned, Rivera approached Lacey in the hallway. That was bold. You made an impression. It wasn't just me, Lacey said calmly. It was all of us. And we're just getting started. Outside, the crowd gathered on the steps, cameras flashing, phones recording, signs raised. We are Greenwood. We will not be moved. Lacey stood at the top, not for glory, but for visibility, so the next child riding by on a bike could look up and see someone who looked like their mother, their teacher, their neighbor, fighting for their future. Because this wasn't just about saving one lot. This was about reclaiming the right to stay. City Hall, behind closed doors, the heavy oak door shut with a final click behind them. The thick walls of the council chamber swallowed the murmurs from the hallway like a vacuum. Lacey stood with her arms crossed, her frame poised but alert. Councilman Mills moved with a snake's grace, his footsteps precise as he circled her slowly. You've made quite the mess, Miss Nelson. She didn't flinch. No, I pulled back the curtain. You're just upset people can finally see who's been pulling the strings. He smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. There's always a price for being too loud. Lacey raised her chin. Is that a threat? Oh, Lacey, he murmured, finally stopping directly in front of her. Voice dripping with false sympathy. You're smart, top of your class, beautiful, passionate. Why waste it all on a losing cause? Because I remember what this city used to be before men like you decided it was up for sale. Mill's face tightened, the mask slipping just slightly. Be careful. You're poking very old, very connected powers. You won't win this with passion. This is chess, not church. Then he tilted his hand slightly and delivered the blow with chilling softness. How's your daughter doing? Sky, is it? The temperature in the room dropped. Lacey's heart slammed into her ribs. Her eyes darkened. Don't you dare speak her name. I'm just saying, he continued with a smile that felt like poison. A child needs stability, a safe place. It'd be a shame if the court thought otherwise. She stepped forward, voice shaking but not with fear, with fury. You think a thin thread about my daughter is going to make me back down? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Mills turned away casually. I know exactly who you are, Lacey. I just didn't think you'd be stupid enough to bring a child into your war. He opened the door without looking back. We'll talk again soon. Let's hope next time you're a little more compliant. Shape later that night, the apartment was quiet again. Too quiet. Sky was asleep, tucked in with her stuffed bunny clutched to her chest. Lacey stood in the kitchen, barefoot. Still in the same clothes from earlier, hands trembling as she stared at her phone. She didn't want to do this, but Mills had crossed the line. She gathered every document, every time-stamped email, every scanned receipt she had on Mills and his developer allies. She placed them in a folder, took a picture, and attached it to a message. Text message. To Andrew. Message. I need you. Be here tomorrow. I'm done playing nice. This is everything I've got on Mills and the others. We don't have time. They made it personal. Her thumb hovered over the screen before hitting send. She stared at the message until it turned delivered. Shape the next day, Lacey's office. The morning light had barely crept through the blinds when her door opened. His jaw was locked tight, eyes a pale gray, calculating, like frost behind glass. He stood at her office door with military stiffness, broad-shouldered, dark hair slicked back, not a strand out of place. The air shifted. Icy blue eyes scanned the room like a drone, suit sharp enough to cut. Then, "Daddy!" Sky's voice pierced the tension like sunshine breaking clouds. She bolted from the small reading nook near Lacey's desk and into Andrew's arms. He swept her up, his icy demeanor melting the moment her tiny hands wrapped around his neck. He kissed her cheek, then crossed the room, holding Sky on one arm like it was second nature. He pressed a kiss gently to Lacey's cheek. "I read the message," he said quietly. "No one threatens my girls, Lacey, even if we're not together anymore." Her breath caught. Andrew set Sky down gently, letting her scurry off with a giggle to her art supplies. He turned back to Lacey, voice firmer now. "You'll always be my girl. No one will ever come before you two. You know I still love you." Lacey looked up at him, soft pain in her eyes, a guarded smile playing on her lips. "You always did show up when it mattered." "One day," Andrew murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I know you have your doubts, but we'll be together again. My job won't keep me away from my girls forever. But today we burn Mills down, quietly, legally, thoroughly." He looked over at the folder she'd prepared. "Let's get to work." Lacey's office. Early afternoon, the blinds were pulled, the door locked. The hum of the old ceiling fan was the only sound in the room for a moment, as Andrew laid out the folders, his laptop open, blue eyes sharp and scanning. Lacey stood across from him, arms crossed, tension thrumming beneath her skin like a coiled wire. The old whiteboard in the corner, once used for youth center planning, now served a more dangerous purpose. Andrew tapped his pen against the file. "You weren't kidding. This isn't just obstruction. This is coordinated fraud. These shell companies are all routed through one real estate investment firm. Mill's brother-in-law sits on the board. They've been buying up properties under different LLCs, driving down prices, then filing false environmental delays on community permits, so they can swoop in when people are forced to sell." Lacey leaned in, her voice calm but fire beneath it. "I told you. They're bleeding us slowly, expecting us to go quietly." Andrew looked up. "They don't know you very well." A brief smile tugged at her lips. He continued, "We need to divide our strategy into 3 lanes: legal pressure, public exposure, and political leverage." He turned the whiteboard around and began to write. 1. Legal pressure. Submit ethics complaint to city board. Push for public records release of all council member real estate disclosures. File injunction on land transfer connected to Mills partners. 2. Public exposure. Organize a press conference with whistleblowers and community leaders. Leverage social media with documented evidence. Use hashtags to build momentum. Get a respected reporter to cover the pattern of corruption. Someone outside the local pocket. 3. Political leverage. Secure support from clean council members. Councilwoman Rivera. Maybe Darnell. Quietly meet with the city's legal counsel and expose the risk to the mayor's re-election if this blows up. Mobilize faith leaders and local unions for a petition vote of no confidence. Lacey's arms dropped to her sides. "You had this kind of war plan in you this whole time?" Andrew met her gaze. "You were always the fighter. I was just waiting for you to ask." He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "I know what it means for you to involve me, Lacey. After everything, after how we ended." She inhaled slowly. "This wasn't how I wanted to pull you back in. I wanted peace between us." "You still have it," he said firmly. But peace isn't always quiet. Sometimes it means standing back to back in a war. She blinked fast, fighting the heat in her eyes. You said one day we'd be together again. Andrew nodded. Today, I've your weapon. Tomorrow, we'll see. She reached for the files, but his hand caught hers gently. Hey. What? Don't forget who you are in all this. You're not just some neighborhood advocate. You're a damn force. This city should be scared. Lacey held his gaze. Good. Because I'm done asking nicely. They turned together, shoulders aligned, hearts steady but racing. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that two warriors were preparing to shake its foundations. Inside, the storm was already gathering. A downtown coffee shop. Dimly lit. Off the grid, the scent of burnt espresso clung to the air as Lacey Nelson stepped into the quiet corner cafe. One of those hole-in-the-wall places where the lights flickered slightly, and the barista didn't ask questions. It was past dusk. Rain misted on the windows, distorting the amber glow from street lamps. Lacey's scarf was pulled tightly around her neck, her faux locks wrapped beneath a beanie. She looked ordinary, unremarkable, just another tired woman slipping in for warmth, but her mind was sharpened to a blade. In the back corner sat a woman, mid-40s, pressed blouse wrinkled, hair in a bun like it hadn't been touched since noon. She nursed a chipped mug, eyes flicking to the entrance like a rabbit sensing the fox. Her name was Danielle Sykes, former aide to Councilman Mills, and her conscience had finally outweighed her fear. You're late, Danielle said. But her voice held no malice, just nerves. I had to lose a tail, Lacey replied smoothly, setting her tote down and sliding into the seat across from her. She wasn't joking. Danielle glanced around the cafe, still unsure. I shouldn't be doing this. You don't understand who he answers to. I do now, Lacey said, laying a small recorder between them. Talk. Danielle took a long breath, then leaned forward, voice a rasp. Mills wasn't just stalling your permits. He was actively falsifying city zoning reports, using insider knowledge to funnel those properties to his brother-in-law's firm, Grayland Acquisition. They created dummy LLCs to launder the deals through multiple buyers, hiding his name. Lacey didn't blink. Go on. They used public funds, reallocation from affordable housing budgets, all rubber-stamped with fake audits. I filed concerns 6 months ago. 2 days later, my access was revoked. I was reassigned, then let go. For ethical conflicts. Lacey clenched her fists beneath the table. How deep? Danielle's eyes darkened. Deeper than City Hall, judges, real estate regulators, campaign donors. But I have names, copies, flash drives. But I need protection, Lacey. Real protection. I've been followed. My phone's been cloned. I'm scared I'll disappear. You won't. Lacey placed a business card in Danielle's hand. You're not alone anymore. Meanwhile, Andrew's location, undisclosed, stood in a dark conference room, speaking into a secure phone line. His posture was tense but controlled, jaw ticking slightly. She's with the source now. He told the man on the other end. Get the FBI her statement. We move once it's recorded. I want Grayland's financials frozen and Mills' accounts flagged before sunrise. A pause. Yes, I know what I'm doing. Just keep her safe. He turned to a second monitor displaying live security footage of the cafe. Nothing invasive, just enough to keep eyes on the perimeter. A subtle nod to the small team of private operatives now tasked with Lacey's protection. Behind him, another man stood, gray suit, ex-military, no name given. The kind of professional who didn't need to speak to be understood. She doesn't know you're watching? The man asked. No, Andrew replied. And she doesn't need to. She wouldn't accept it. But I'm not taking chances. Not with her. Not with my daughter. Sape Lacey's apartment. But Lacey felt it now, the invisible shield tightening around her. She didn't know all the players in the shadows, but she knew one thing for sure. Andrew wouldn't let her fall. High-rise law office, Midtown. The office was sterile, the kind of place where power hid behind glass and silence. The skyline shimmered in the distance, but inside the room, the temperature dropped with the arrival of Dominic Shaw, a sharp-jawed, smooth-spoken attorney with a reputation for never raising his voice because he never needed to. Across the table sat Richard Vance, financial advisor and longtime fixer for Grayland Acquisition. He looked relaxed, legs crossed, suit wrinkle-free, until Dominic placed a thick manila folder on the table. "I was told this meeting was about a potential merger," Vance said, smirking. Dominic smiled faintly. "No, this is about the fall of your empire." He opened the folder slowly, revealing copies of internal ledgers, fraudulent transfers, and donor bribes, all tied directly to Councilman Mill's office and Vance's off-book management accounts. Vance stiffened. "Where did you get that?" he asked tightly. Dominic leaned forward. "From someone who doesn't mind prison if it means dragging you down with them. You've been laundering funds through 3 dummy LLCs. Don't bother denying it. The wire patterns match. The Securities and Exchange Office has been notified. FBI already has the originals." He let that sink in before continuing, voice calm as ice. "Now, I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to warn. A public takedown is coming. Your name might survive if you cooperate, or you can go down with Mills and lose everything." Vance scoffed, but his hand trembled as he reached for a glass of water. Dominic stood. "You'll want to get your affairs in order. Clock's ticking." Without another word, he walked out. Back downstairs, he entered a black car and nodded to the driver. From the back seat, Andrew looked up from his laptop. "Did he bite?" "He'll cave within 72 hours, Dominic replied. "He's already sweating." Andrew nodded once, then turned his screen. "Good, because while Lacey built a movement outside, we're going to pull the rug out from under them inside." Shape at the Greenwood Community Center, evening before the protest. The old gym echoed with voices. Folding chairs filled with block captains, organizers, church leaders, college students, and local business owners. Lacey stood at the front, her sleeves rolled, locks tied back, voice calm but powerful. "No more whispers, no more waiting. We march tomorrow, not just for Greenwood, but for every block, every family, every soul that's been pushed aside." The room buzzed. Camera crews from local outlets were already stationed in the back. Social media had been lighting up for hours with the hashtags #WeAreGreenwood and #RiseUpCitywide. Lacey pointed to the large protest map on the wall. "We take City Hall steps at noon, non-violent, unified, visible. We'll have speakers every hour, voices from neighborhoods across the city. And at the end," she held up a clear folder, "I'll deliver our official complaint with over 5,000 signatures and community statements. This city will have no choice but to listen." The crowd erupted in applause. From the back of the room, Elena, her discreet, stone-faced nanny, scanned the crowd while casually adjusting her earpiece. She never left Lacey's side, and in the parking lot across the street, a quiet black SUV idled with tinted windows. Inside, Andrew sat watching from the distance. He didn't step in, didn't make a speech. This was Lacey's moment, and the city needed to see her shine. He typed quickly, attaching more files to an encrypted drive for the FBI. Evidence of tax fraud, voter suppression via rezoning, and a scheme to sell land beneath low-income housing at undervalued rates to insider developers. He hit send. Then he looked up through the windshield. Inside the gym, Lacey stood with her fist raised, her voice strong, her stance rooted. She wasn't just leading a protest. She was leading a revolution. And Andrew, from the shadows, would burn the whole system down to keep her standing. At the City Hall steps, protest day, 12:03 p.m. The streets were a river of bodies, marchers in matching shirts, elders with homemade signs, children on shoulders, and activists with bullhorns. From every direction, neighborhoods converged at the base of City Hall like waves crashing against a long untouched shore. Media vans lined the sidewalks. Drones hovered overhead. Hashtags were trending nationally. At the top of the steps stood Lacey Nelson, framed by clergy, organizers, and students. Her scarf rippled in the wind, locks falling over one shoulder, and her presence, rooted, radiant, commanded the space like she was born to be there. She stepped forward to the podium, voice carried by a sea of microphones and amplified speakers. This city was built by people who were never invited to the table, but we built it anyway. The crowd roared. They've taken our homes, our schools, our history, and tried to sell it back to us at twice the price. Chants rose behind her. We are Greenwood. We will not be moved. Lacey's voice softened, but its weight pressed deeper. They told us we were invisible. Today, we make sure they see us. And with that, she held up a thick folder of community affidavits and public petitions. In 1 hour, I will walk these through the front doors of City Hall and hand them over. And whether they listen or not, this movement doesn't end here. It starts here. Applause, cheers, tears. The energy was electric. From a rooftop across the street, Andrew watched through binoculars, jaw tight, pride simmering in his chest. He didn't need to speak. This was her moment. But just as he lowered his scope, his phone vibrated. Text from private security, 12:09 p.m. Office breach. We're on site. Info was untouched, except fake files were taken. You're going to want to see this. Andrew's expression hardened. They made their move. Shape Lacey's office, 12:45 p.m. The scent of spray paint still lingered in the air when the team arrived. Aleda was already inside, clearing the room and checking for any hidden devices. 2 plainclothes men posted outside had eyes on the street. Lacey entered a moment later, pulled away from the tail end of the protest by Elena's call. Her office had been ransacked, desk drawers ripped open, papers thrown across the floor. But the centerpiece, the part meant to rattle her, stood out like blood on white linen, spray painted in red across the wall. Stay silent or else. Lacey stared at it, not with fear, with fury. I told you they'd get desperate, Andrew said, appearing from the shadows of the doorway. He stepped inside, quiet but burning. They think this will break you, he added, but what they didn't know. He turned toward the mounted wall camera, the small, inconspicuous black dome in the corner. Is that the entire break-in was recorded? 2 clear angles. We already ID'd one of the men. He's tied to a private security firm, one that just happens to be contracted by Greyland Acquisition. Lacey blinked. So, they took. Andrew walked over to a nearby flash drive, left purposefully askew on the corner of the desk. That? He smirked. Blueprints for a fake community housing plan I made in college. Numbers are bogus. Timelines made up. Even the signatures are phony. It was bait. Lacey let out a slow breath, tension beginning to unravel in her shoulders. You set this up? I had a feeling they'd make a move today. You were out in front of the city. They thought you'd leave your back open. He turned to face her fully. But I never do. For a moment she looked at him. Really looked at him, the man who once walked away for the sake of peace, now waging silent war to keep her safe. They're going to pay for this, Andrew. He nodded. And they're going to do it while the city watches. Shape News report. That evening, footage plays from the break-in. Face, clear, weapon, spray can, name tagged and traced to a known operative under Greyland Acquisition's payroll. Lacey's protest speech plays beside the footage in a split screen. Reporter James Marshall. Today, while thousands gathered in peaceful protest, a coordinated intimidation attempt was caught on camera in the very office of Lacey Nelson, founder of Rise Up Greenwood. The protest continued. The movement grew. And now, the FBI confirms they've opened an investigation into Councilman Mills and his ties to Greyland Acquisition. Undisclosed private residence. Early morning sunlight filtered through linen curtains, casting soft gold across the room where Skye sat on a cozy rug, coloring peacefully. Elena stood just a few feet away, sipping coffee, eyes never straying far from the little girl. Andrew paced just beyond the doorway, phone to his ear, his tone razor sharp. "She's safe?" he asked. "Secured. Backup teams in place. We rotated cars twice and switched devices," came the calm voice on the other end. Andrew exhaled slowly. "Good. Lacey doesn't know yet. I want it that way. Keep the cameras off until I say otherwise." He hung up and stepped back into the living room. Skye looked up, beaming. "Daddy, look." Andrew smiled and walked over, kneeling beside her. "That's beautiful, baby. What is it?" "It's Mommy and me and you. But you have a cape." He chuckled softly and kissed her head. "Always." But as he stood again, his face changed. No longer soft, but locked in a strategist's mask. "Now," he muttered, pulling out his tablet, "let's finish this." Shape at City Hall, Councilman Mills' private office, 10:14 a.m. Mills' hand slammed against the table. "Push it through." He barked into the phone. "I don't care if the ink's still wet. I want the Greenwood rezoning signed, sealed, and on the damn register before noon." He hung up and turned to his assistant, smug curling his lips. "They marched, they cried, they signed petitions, and now we own the land." The assistant blinked. "Sir, did you say we?" Mills grinned. "Grayland acquisition. We fast-tracked the permits while they were out shouting in the streets. By the time they go back to work Monday, the contracts will be sealed." He leaned back, satisfied. "We won." Shape Law Office of Shaw and Travers, conference room. Lacey stood staring at the headline on a tablet. "City approves Greenwood zoning for Grayland acquisition." Her hands trembled. "No. How? How did he?" Andrew stepped into the room calmly, shutting the door behind him. "He didn't," he said, sliding a file across the table toward her. "He doesn't own Greenwood." Lacey looked up, blinking. "What?" Andrew opened the folder, revealing documents filed 3 weeks earlier. Grayland Acquisition LLC, founder, Dominic Shaw, co-signatory, Andrew S. Collins. "We created a new LLC, spelled with an A instead of an E. Registered out of state. Perfectly legal. Mills' team never noticed." Lacey gasped, covering her mouth. "He rushed the paperwork. Bypassed protocol. Our Grayland acquisition now owns the zoning rights, and we're already in the process of donating the land back to the community trust under Rise Up Greenwood." She stared at the documents, her mind catching up. "Mills thinks he won." Andrew nodded. "He'll find out when the contractors show up and start building a youth center instead of luxury apartments." Lacey laughed, shaky at first, then full, rich, triumphant. "You brilliant, calculating, devious man." Andrew smirked. "You say that like it's a bad thing." She stepped toward him, touched his chest lightly. "What else did you do?" His expression darkened slightly, protective. "I relocated Skye. Just for precaution. If Mills realizes what we've done before the feds finish their takedown, I won't risk her safety." Lacey's breath caught. "Where?" "She's safe. With me. With security. Elena knows. I was going to tell you sooner, but..." "No," she whispered. "Thank you. For thinking ahead. For not hesitating." Andrew's eyes softened. "You're my family, Lacey. No one touches my girls." Councilman Mills' office, 2 hours later. The buzz of his phone came just as Mills was pouring himself a celebratory scotch. He answered, annoyed. "What now?" "Sir," his assistant's voice trembled. "There's been a mistake. The entity we approved, Grayland, spelling with the letter A, not Grayland, with the letter E. We don't own Greenwood." Silence. Mills blinked, as if the room had tilted. "That can't be. That's impossible." "City registry confirms it, sir. The contract is legal. Everything went through." His glass slipped from his hand, shattering across the marble floor. Pre-dawn, Councilman Mills' home, Suburban Heights. Red and blue lights flashed in the darkness like warning flares. The hum of engines and sharp stomps of heavy boots shattered the stillness of morning as black SUVs lined the manicured cul-de-sac. One by one, FBI agents poured out, vests marked, weapons drawn but lowered, precise and without panic. Councilman Mills stood at his front door, robe open over silk pajamas, hair disheveled, face blank with disbelief. FBI, search warrant, step aside. Before he could stammer a word, two agents swept past him, one gripping his arm as another opened a sealed folder. You're under investigation for conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, abuse of public funds, and obstruction of justice. Mills blinked. This is political. You don't understand who I am. The lead agent looked him dead in the eye. We do. That's why we're here. Behind them, another squad raided his brother-in-law's mansion, Grayland's luxury offices, storage facilities, and even a private hangar. Digital records were seized, employees detained, servers dismantled. And as the operation expanded, names of other city officials began to surface. Low-level clerks, high-ranking board members, even a retired judge, all tied to years of backdoor land theft, community sabotage, and financial kickbacks. It wasn't just one man, it was a web, and it was unraveling fast. City Hall steps, later that afternoon, with the sunlight spilled over the city like a baptism as the people gathered once again on the City Hall steps. But this time, they didn't come in protest. They came to celebrate. Drums echoed down the street as elders danced. Youth groups waved flags and wore shirts that read, "We are Greenwood. We fought back." Local media swarmed the area, covering every face, every chant, every tear. Lacey Nelson stood at the podium once more, this time in a long white blazer, radiant and serene. Her voice rang out, powerful but humbled. Months ago, we stood here, begging to be seen. Today, we are not only seen, we are heard, we are valued, we are victorious. Applause thundered, the crowd on its feet. The corruption that threatened to destroy our community has been exposed, and justice is only beginning. I want to thank the people who never gave up, the organizers, the whistleblowers, the mothers who marched with strollers, the students who refused to be quiet, and the teams who worked behind the scenes to protect us while we fought in the open. She paused. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they found Andrew, standing at the edge, holding Sky in his arms, his expression unreadable but proud. Elena stood beside them, ever watchful. Lacey's voice softened. Some heroes work in the light, others in the shadows. To both, I thank you. This is not just a win for Greenwood, it's a reminder. We, the people, have the power. A roar of cheers exploded behind her, and we will never be invisible again. Greenwood Community Center. That night, the lights in the once abandoned building glowed warmly. Children played in the new rec room. Food trucks lined the street. Laughter replaced tension. A mural was already in progress on the outer wall, depicting fists raised, elders holding teas, children planting seeds. The title, We Rose Up. Inside, Lacey walked over to Andrew and Sky. She wouldn't leave until she showed you this, Andrew said, smiling down at their daughter. Sky held up a drawing. It's us, at the new house, with the garden. Lacey knelt down, tears filling her eyes. It's beautiful, baby, just like the future we're building. Andrew helped her up. They asked me if I wanted credit, if I wanted to speak. Lacey smiled, eyes shining. You already spoke. Every move you made said, I love you. He leaned closer, still do. She touched his chest gently. One day, Andrew? He nodded. One day. They stood there in the warmth of the reborn community, together, strong and surrounded by the people they fought for. And somewhere, far from corruption, noise and fear, hope took root. Months later, Lacey's home, Sky's 4th birthday. That morning sun broke gently through the kitchen windows, washing the room in gold. Balloons floated lazily near the ceiling. The smell of pancakes and vanilla cake batter filled the air. Lacey stood barefoot at the stove, humming softly, flipping pancakes shaped like stars, Sky's request. A tiny voice squealed from the hallway. "Mommy, Mommy, look!" Sky bolted into the kitchen, wearing her birthday crown, eyes wide and sparkling. Lacey turned, and then froze. Behind Sky stood Andrew, suitcase in hand, a bouquet of yellow tulips tucked under one arm, and that unmistakable, quiet fire in his eyes. He wore a navy jacket, sharp and casual, his hair a little longer, a little softer. But his expression, it undid her. Sky ran to him, leaping into his arms. He scooped her up effortlessly, spinning once before resting her on his hip. "Happy birthday, champ," he whispered, kissing her cheek. Lacey blinked rapidly, the spatula still in her hand. Her eyes dropped to the suitcase. "What's that?" Andrew set Sky down gently, his gaze never leaving Lacey as he walked toward her. "It's home," he said simply. "No more missions, no more spy games, no more shadows. I'm not leading again." Lacey's breath caught. Her hand flew to her face, trying to contain the wave of emotions flooding through her. Tears spilled anyway. Joy, relief, love, too big to hold in. Andrew stepped close, his voice soft and steady. "You can stop being strong for a second, Lacey. I'm here now, really here." She let out a small sob as he pulled her into his arms. And then, he kissed her. Not the guarded kisses from before. Not the rushed ones, between danger and decisions. A deep, soul-reaching, time-pausing kiss. The kind you wait your whole life for. When they finally pulled apart, he reached into his pocket, opened his palm, and slid her wedding ring, simple, elegant, and familiar, back onto her finger. "You left us in the drawer when you said we had to live apart, to protect Sky. But you never took it off in your heart. And neither did I." Lacey stared down at the ring, then up at him. Sky tugged at her mom's robe. "Wait, you're married?" Andrew smiled, crouching down. "We've been married for 5 years, Peanut. We just kept it a secret so you'd have pancakes and not security detail at your birthday parties." Sky gasped, "This is the best birthday ever." Lacey laughed through her tears, bending down and kissing her daughter's forehead. "It really is." Andrew stood and wrapped his arms around them both. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. Inside, love finally had nowhere else to go but home. The end. Hope you enjoyed this wonderful story by Green Tea Tales. Thank you. Help our channel to grow with likes, shares, and subscribes.